Hello everyone, Xavier here, and welcome to Nerded's first ever podcast. Today I'm joined by MacDolan.
Hey, how's it going?
We're excited to discuss the newly announced World of Warcraft expansion, Legion. The expansion was announced in early August, but we are still excited to talk about the juicy details and information that will keep the World of Warcraft franchise alive. Our experience with World of Warcraft goes back many, many years. I've been playing on and off since the release back in 2004, when my older brother suckered me into splitting the cost of the game with him, and I made a character the night of Thanksgiving, just a few days after the launch of the game. I was in 6th grade, roughly the age of 11. Yikes, that's a pretty scary thought. Don't worry, veteran players, I didn't make it to endgame content until I was about 13. Still kind of a scary thought, isn't it? Joel, do you want to go ahead and tell the listeners just briefly how you got started with the game?
So in 7th grade I met Matt in middle school, and then I started hanging out with him a bunch, and since he played games all the time, and a couple of the other guys that we hung around with played WoW, this summer after 7th grade, I decided to go try and buy the game. It was probably a year or so before the first expansion came out. So around that time, Diddle and I both ended up buying the game, and it wasn't like peer pressure, but it was just I really wanted to play because that's all they would talk about. So I did that, and then I made a Night Elf Hunter as my first character, which I think is almost everyone's first character when they start to play.
Because you guys all followed me.
No. Because we were all super into Lord of the Rings, and Legolas was a...
True.
Was a...
OP.
Well, he was an elf hunter. He was a wood elf hunter.
Mm-hmm.
The dream.
Yeah. So basically, I'm responsible for ruining your life. And the lives of many other friends.
It was an expansion of my life.
There you go. That's a good way to look at it.
I could enter a whole new world.
All right. So, do we consider ourselves an authority on the game? Do we consider ourselves World of Warcraft experts? No. But we have seen the game change for better and for worse over these good many years.
That's not true. Matt does consider himself to be an expert. We call him Dr. BC on occasion because he thinks he knows everything about the Crusade expansion, even though he was total garb.
Burning Crusade was my favorite, and that probably will always be. So I do apologize in advance if I do try to compare the game too much to its older and better version. But yeah, that's true. We've kind of fallen off a little in the last few expansions. So,
well, I mean, it's changed a lot since when we first really started getting into it. The majority of our time that we spent playing WoW was during BC and Wrath.
Yeah,
and I guess. There's an Office quote that says, "Don't you wish you could know when you're in the good old days when they're happening?" And that's kind of
that's good.
What BC and Wrath was like for us, because we didn't
Right, we were young. We didn't have any responsibilities. We just got to play and childhood memories, basically.
We made a guild for, I think, Cataclysm that was called Wrath Was Bad. That was the guild that we made.
Because we thought Wrath... I don't know why we despised it so much.
We thought Wrath was bad. It was a little easier than Burning Crusade was. Burning Crusade was really hard, the heroics.
Yeah, it really was. I think... And now we look back at it, we want Wrath. We want Wrath back. We thought Wrath was bad at the time, but it's basically... We have to get out of the mindset of comparing everything to what it prior was.
Well, Wrath and BC seem the golden age of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that was when the lore was almost concrete.
Because they still had source material. They still had Warcraft 3 that they were... Well, Warcraft 2 and 3 to some extent, because 2 with the Oryx and everything. That was when they actually had source material to come off of, and most of the villains that you heard of or were playing against were people that already existed. They weren't creating them.
Mm-hmm.
The Shav Fear, Shav Anger.
Yeah.
I don't personally care about that.
Yeah, that's probably been the biggest criticism in the last few expansions. I think with Cataclysm, people were really hopeful still, because Deathwing was still... They were really at the bottom of the barrel for that one, and then when they went to Pandaland and Warlords of Draenor was cool because it brought you back to Draenor was an actual place.
It was Outland before.
And everybody loved Outland, so they
corrupted.
thought revamping that would be good. And for all intent and purposes, they did a good job in that aspect. But we don't need to get into why we think certain expansions are better than others. Let's just get into the thick of things, and we'll start talking about the new content coming in World of Warcraft 6 expansion called Legion.
All right, so there's a few story elements that Blizzard decided to share with us when they were unveiling the expansion. Gul'dan is causing problems, like he's wanting to do, like that's his thing. So Draenor Gul'dan manages to exit that universe.
Things are going to get so wonky.
He releases Illidan with what intention? Who knows? Like Illidan's a demon hunter, and Gul'dan is a warlock who raises and controls demons.
It works for the demons, basically.
Yeah, so that's kind of strange. But we're assuming that he's hoping to use Illidan's hatred for the native Azerathian races against them. So, like, he's hoping he'll explode and just freak out and try and kill everyone, I guess.
Yeah, and then that kind of gets into the idea of Gul'dan coming into a universe where we already had a Gul'dan die. So I was looking around for a little bit of this topic, and it had somebody mention, so how's the conversation going to go with Illidan and Warlords of Draenor Gul'dan? Because Illidan harnessed our Azeroth's Gul'dan's power from his skull, like the dead Gul'dan, and then Illidan's going to wake up and be like, who the fuck is this guy? Like,
I'm kind of curious how they're, like...
Maybe he could even play it off like he doesn't tell him who he is. But that would involve, like, Draenor Gul'dan knowing what happened to him after he died in Azeroth, so it's...
Well, also, we don't know, like, how far down the path Illidan is. Because, like, in Burning Crusade, we killed Illidan. So we don't know at what point in his story we're coming across him. Like, is it Illidan when he was still, like, cool with the Night Elves? And
I think what it is it's the... Illidan's body is just basically being guarded, and his soul is meant to be imprisoned, so he has to endure this awful imprisonment while he's dead.
Purgatory sort of thing.
Basically, and that's where I think that's where he's released from, is the Vault of the Wardens, which is going to be a new dungeon that I think we have to explore. But I think that's essentially how it is. Like, Illidan was defeated, so not destroyed, obviously, because his body still exists. Because I think the story is that Maiev, Shadowsong, is the one that took his body there, basically to torture him more, I think, for his misdoings.
Yeah, she kind of catfished him. So the expansion is going to be pretty demon-focused, with Gul'dan, like I said, being a warlock. He's raising demons. He's going to try and open the tomb of Sargeras, who is, like, the ultimate big bad in the World of Warcraft, the leader of the Burning Legion, the ultimate demon, and the only person who even stood a chance against him at one point was Medivh's mother, who was, like, the strongest magic user on Azeroth.
Yeah.
But even she couldn't totally destroy him. If you haven't read the book, The Last Guardian, pretty much what happens is Sargeras' body gets trapped, thrown to the bottom of the ocean or something, and a piece of his soul or spirit goes inside of Medivh's mother because she's pregnant with Medivh, and it, like, embeds itself in Medivh. So throughout his life, he's got, like, these two entities inside of him, and they're kind of
Conflicting.
Trying to fight for control of this super strong magic user.
Yeah, and then along with that, the Tomb of Sargeras basically being the portal for this giant demonomic invasion, the Legion is scouring the new continent of the Broken Isles, which is where the expansion is going to be based primarily. They are looking for the Pillars of Creation, which happen to be Titan relics that the Legion needs to summon Sargeras to Azeroth, so he can basically just fuck shit up.
So far we've got the Legion, we've got Horde versus Alliance, sorta, kind of with down a little bit.
All we know is they're still all pretty pissed at each other.
And we've got Titan stuff. We have Titan stuff.
Then we got old gods coming in sometime.
Old gods are going to be around there somewhere,
which I don't know.
At least it's not trolls.
Yeah. Hey, I don't mind a nice troll raid.
At this point, it's been done.
True.
Well, I mean, at sixth expansion, everything's been done. Unless you're just making up new stuff, which is what we were saying.
Which is what we don't want.
We don't really care for that anyways.
Yeah. So on top of the Broken Isles, what we're going to have for introducing the story to players in the expansion is going to be what the developers were calling the Broken Shore experience. What developers were saying is that it's going to be a shocking experience for any WoW player in the last 5 to 7 years, I believe they said. They said it's a better introduction than the Warlords of Draenor one, which I would have to say won't be too difficult to do. I know that was highly criticized. What did they set up for us? Like a handful of quests in the Blasted Lands? I mean, that was pretty piss poor show.
There's a handful of quests, and then you got a few items, which if you were into raiding at all...
I don't even think it was that. I think it was kind of more catch-up gear, even.
It was catch-up gear, but, if you did...
at the time was
LFR, I think that was around for... Yeah, LFR was still around, so it was kind of like on par with the current level LFR gear, so it wasn't like anything that players who are constantly playing really cared about. I think the pre-expansion patch is usually like, right, you guys who are getting pumped about this new expansion, come back, we'll catch you up, we'll tell you what's going on, we'll give you some gear to get stronger, and you think that it's going to be crazy again.
Yeah, and they mentioned that it's going to help set up the story, but they also they said it's going to come before the actual X-Pack. So they said it's going to be a patch. And when they say like a super shocking experience to any WoW player, I'm just thinking, I'm like, is it going to be a huge plot twist? Are we going to lose are we going to lose some big heroes, or is it just going to be like a great immersive, interactive kickoff experience for the expansion? So I'm really curious because I just rewatched that part of that discussion today, and that kind of ran through my head. I'm like, what are they going to throw at us that's going to wow some WoW players? People who've been playing the game for years are apparently going to be blown away. And this guy even mentioned after he said that, he's like, I'm probably going to get backlash for that. But still, I mean, for them to come out and say something like that, he looked at the other developers and they all kind of shook their heads. So I'm really curious to see what we're in store for at the Broken Shore.
It almost makes you concerned, like, with what they're going to do. Because, like, people as a whole don't like change. And if it's something that's going to change the World of Warcraft drastically, like, does someone die? Does Thrall die?
Yeah, I was thinking Thrall or like Morrigraine, because they mentioned like picking up the Ashbringer. I don't know if you remember that from the discussion when they talk about the artifact weapons, but they talk about picking up the Ashbringer from the Broken Shore. Like that is kind of how I think Ian Hazakosta said something about that. And I was like, why would we be picking up the Ashbringer? That means somebody had to drop it.
Yeah.
And like they said, our duty for picking up the artifact weapons and us going out to get them is because either the heroes who have normally weld them have disappeared, died, or either lost hope. So it's just Thrall get like thrashed and he's just like ruined, or is he not feeling the fight anymore? And we have to be like, all right, Thrall, this is how we're going to do it. And we pick up the Doomhammer and we're just like, let's go.
This is probably one of the more unlikely things that would happen, but I think it would be really cool for like demons to invade Azeroth, and then like each faction would lose one of their cities. Like what if
like they're permanently here and like they're actually making an impact on the
like, all right, Stormwind's gone. Stormwind's under the control of the Legion, which wouldn't happen since it's such a major hub to get to.
Right, but like Darnassus or something with the Elven lore and its remoteness, so like they're just like take over.
Well, Xavius is mentioned.
Yeah,
and if Darnassus being on the World Tree was kind of taken over, that would give him quite a lot of power because he would have control over the corrupted world tree and then the uncorrupted world tree, which he would start to try and corrupt, I guess. Yeah,
I think the fact that they kind of, we'll get to it here soon, but they talk about Xavius. We might be getting a little far-fetched on that, but yeah, I like the idea of, oh, the Legion are attacking, like, can we actually see something happen to our Azeroth? Like you said, like, losing a major city, or, like, this is a no-go zone anymore because it's, like a huge base, but now it's this brand new continent.
I almost want to see them put, like, demons that are, like, you know, level cap's getting raised to 110, so I'd like to see, like, level 110 demons just
wandering around,
yeah,
just like chilling in Ungoro Crater, like in the steam pools, and just like,
why not? That would make sense to me. They're invading Azeroth, and it kind of reminds me of back in the day when people would kite like demons into Stormwind or something.
Doom Lord Kazakh, yeah,
just watch him, you know, just cause tons of damage,
just ruin everyone. I remember that. There's a vanilla footage, yeah. The Broken Isles is going to be our new continent. It's going to be where we're spending, I'm assuming where we're spending most of our time. It looks a bit small to me, but that's up for debate. Apparently, these isles have always existed, and the explanation given to us is that we never had any reason to go there prior to Legion. So that kind of makes sense, but I mean, they have to make some kind of story for this centralized area that our boats have on the map gone through, I'm sure, when we see it on the map. I'm kind of curious to see where they're going to be placed, because the map is kind of filling up in the middle as of late.
The map is filling up. Yeah, like you said, the boat paths, you know, the loading boat paths that you always have to go through, they always cross through the area that the Broken Isles inhabit, and it's
or the Maelstrom. I mean, our boats could have. I don't know how we made it through so many times from Menthil Harbor to.
They're always on time.
Aberdeen. Thank God for that.
I just think it's, I don't know. Like, we've already gone back. We've already made new zones in Azeroth, you know, like Twilight Highlands and, you know, the stuff that Cataclysm caused.
Yeah.
We've gone to another planet. We've gone to Draenor. We've gone to Northrend. We found Pandaria, you know, the Panders.
The Panders were in the mist.
The Panders.
I don't know how the mist lifted. I forgot, but yeah, they were just hiding.
I don't know. Like,
I mean, I don't blame them for putting something like that in there, because, in my opinion, it's fine. I mean, as long as they do it well, I don't care where the Isles were, and if we had no reason to go there, that's fine. But it sounds like there's people that have been living here. There's been ancient Night Elf civilizations, which we'll get into, but
it's hard to imagine that there was no faction crossover of any kind.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. That's
maybe we've just been too busy fighting. Horde's been fighting Alliance, so we don't have time to go.
Exploration is not really like number one priority when you've got Arthas or Illidan.
Right, we've got these big superpowers that we need.
Deathwing or Panders. And
yeah, there's no Magellan going around exploring. So we'll get right into it here. The first zone they mentioned is called Val Shara. It's going to be an ancient druid homeland, and is now as a forgotten druid refuge. It used to be the source of the druidic lore. It's where Malfurion became the first druid under Cenarius. So those of you that really like druid lore, really like Night Elves, I think this zone's going to be really cool. Here's where they also touch on Xavius, the Nightmare Lord. This is where they get people really hyped about the Emerald Nightmare and the Emerald Dream, because people have been asking for that content for so long.
That was like what people thought might be like the very first expansion of World of Warcraft. I was like, oh, Emerald Dream. We used to have like the Twilight Drakes. There was like 3 Drakes that would spawn.
Yeah, there was 4 world dragons, and they made mention of that too. They're like, yeah, because they had the portals right behind them, and everybody was probably like, oh my god, we kill this drake and we go through that portal. And everybody takes 40 people to down this dragon, and then you go up to the portal, and it's just a little placeholder screen that you can walk through. You're like, aww.
Yeah, so there's probably not enough content in the Emerald Dream / Nightmare for a whole expansion.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
But it's nice that they're including it. They're finding a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think so.
Ancient Druid Homeland, like, the Emerald Dream, Nightmare, Druids, all that kind of stuff. First zone that we're kind of shown, it's what we get. So what a lot of people have been looking for a long time, they're giving it to us, which is Blizzard's way of saying, we hear you, here you go. Which is nice. Really hope it works out well, though.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Xavius is paired up with the Burning Legion. I guess the demons can just talk to whoever they want. They can talk to alternate realities and different stuff.
Well, they can travel between like dimensions.
Yeah, it sounds pretty.
Have we
okay.
Is it confirmed that it's not just another?
Yeah, it's confirmed that Xavius is now under influence of the Burning Legion, and they're basically using him as another directional point of attack. So
the Legion probably just wants like another. Like Xavius wants power, the Legion has power.
Yeah.
They can both gain power by using each other. So one of those like mutually beneficial things.
Yeah, and so they make mention that we're going to be seeing big players like Ysera, Cenarius, Malfurion in this zone. It's also going to be home to a new dungeon called Blackrook Hold, which looks pretty cool. We'll talk a little more about that later. So that's the first zone, Val'Sharah. Next up, we've got Stormheim. Joel, you want to go ahead and talk about that one?
So it's like a pretty northerny place, it sounds like. Vrykul.
the Vrykul, yeah.
Vrykul. It's their holy land, so those are like the Nordic angels of death, essentially.
Yeah.
But World of Warcraft. We get more of a backstory on them and the origin of the Cretans. They leave Northrend in search of their holy land, so it's like their pilgrimage they're going on to find Mecca.
Basically, yeah. So in Stormheim, it looks like we're going to have two different dungeons, Halls of Valor and Helheim. Helheim sounds pretty cool. It sounds like we're going to be riding this giant ghost ship, and then we will meet up at Helheim, the home of two Titan Keepers that apparently have been warring for just thousands of years. So that sounds like it'll be a pretty cool dungeon. And then the God King is apparently supposed to be the leader of the Vrykul here, but it sounds like he has been corrupted by the Legion as well. So he's going to be the main antagonist throughout Stormheim, and I believe the boss at the end of Halls of Valor. So that would be interesting to see how Stormheim goes.
We'd have to be pretty strong to kill someone named the God King, though.
True.
I mean, at this point,
he might be
110. We've slain all these other people.
He might just be this pompous asshole who calls himself the God King.
I mean, at some point, these guys have to be like, all right, these guys, they've killed a lot of the other guys who wanted to dominate the world. I think we should just not mess with them anymore.
I think we should just lay low and not call ourselves the God King.
All right. Next zone is Hazuna. It's an ancient night elf civilization. When we're there, we're going to meet a dying breed of the blue dragonflight, also known as the blue dragonflight. I mean, there's not a ton of blue dragonflight stuff other than the Nexus. Malygos was corrupted.
Yeah, so I think it'd be cool to find this dying breed. Sounds like they might be unique. See what makes them special and why they are in Azuna.
I don't know if they're going to be like some OG type of dragon, like, oh, well, those blue dragons have this kind of power, but we're like, we got this kind of power. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Like, hopefully it's not just like, oh, more blue dragons. Like, hopefully there's something.
Not like a quest hub. Yeah, hopefully they dig into it a little deeper.
I want them to differentiate them or, like, talk about why they have stayed separate from the rest of the blue dragons as their leader, Malygos, was going crazy and dying and everything like that. We're going to meet the Night Fallen, exiled royalty from Suramar. And man, we'll talk a little more about that.
So,
or not.
Yeah, I don't know. The Night Fallen, it just sounds like they... Yeah, this is the ancient Night Elf civilization, a different race of Night Elves than we know, that did eventually live in Suramar. And it sounds like we'll be competing for a Pillar of Creation in Azuna. We'll be racing towards it before Queen Ajara and her minions can get there.
Another person everyone's been dying to play since World of Warcraft started.
Yeah, that's probably something we should talk about too. The fact that she's going to be involved in the expansion.
She'll be present, whether we see her physically or not.
Exactly.
Her influence will be.
Yeah, her influence will definitely be there. I don't know. If you look on the website, they talk about the major lore characters. They don't show her, but they show one of her, probably her right-hand man, yeah. I don't remember exactly her name, but you can find that right on the website. Next, that brings us to High Mountain, the fourth zone here. The High Mountain looks pretty sweet. There we're going to find High Mountain Tauren. They're keepers of the relic of Khazgaroth. These Tauren they show in the little features trailer, and they look pretty sweet.
Amazing. They look so cool.
Yeah, anybody who's a Tauren fan, I mean, why would you not want these sick-looking like elk horns on your Tauren?
Do you think they'll have different kinds of Kodos that you can buy, like rep, like a tricked out Kodo, or maybe something totally different?
Maybe they don't have. They probably don't have Kodos there.
Yeah, they're more of a plains animal.
Yeah, so then I don't think they're very good for traversing the mountainous terrain. But no,
Well, that leads.
That would be cool.
Like rams.
I don't think. Maybe they don't even have mounts. They probably don't need to go anywhere. It sounds like they might just live in High Mountain.
I would really like a rep mount for these like that'd just be a big mount. Like you have like Chocobo or Chocobos, Hawk Striders.
The Hawk Striders. Well, this just sprung up the idea of, you know how you can do the it's been like a hypothesized character creation aspect for so long, have been those different race styles. So like people have wanted like Dark Iron Dwarves, or you want highborn Night Elves or stuff like that. You could do like High Mountain Tauren, like when you're creating a Tauren, you could get that
for sure.
You could get like maybe like I think they have different markings on their fur, and then you could get like the elk-like horns. But that's probably a fantasy that I know a lot of players have asked for something like that. But at this point in the game, I think it's a little far fetched. But just thinking about how to get those elk horns in my Tauren.
Well, I mean they did just redo the models.
Yeah,
in the last expansion. So.
I mean it's really not hard to.
You're changing the horns. That's not like it. Like that'll. You have to change some helms. Like it's not really mess with anything else. It's not like a total, their body looks totally different. They move differently.
Yeah. So High Mountain sounds like it's gonna be a pretty rough and rugged area. Sounds like the biggest and baddest creatures in the Broken Isles are gonna be found here. Nessingwary is definitely gonna be here. He's gonna be looking for some big game. It sounded like people were pretty excited about that. The crowd had a pretty big cheer for Nessingwary.
Yeah, he's a man who chases
big game. He's the big game hunter.
Oh, yeah. Well, there goes your minion with 7 attack or more.
Yeah.
Or is it 6 attack?
It's 7.
All right.
Yeah, so it sounds like the enemy here in this zone is going to be called the Drogbar. They look like a troll, like...
Are they like trogs at all?
Kinda. I would call them like a trog, like, yeah. Kind of like that rocky...
Kind of like Oleman type trogs?
Yeah, I mean, trogs are in the game in a few different spots, but like...
Specifically the Oleman ones.
I would say like a mixture between like a troll and a trog. Because they're like... They're beefier and they look a bit bigger, but I would definitely...
They're like trogs.
Troll, yeah, basically, I guess. I don't know the origin of trogs, but yeah, they're probably a little troll-related. Drogbar, yeah, they're going to be the main enemy in that zone, and I think there was something about the main Drogbar. He's one of the main lore characters on the website, so there's definitely going to be some story there.
We'll probably see a pretty big hub there. I would be surprised if they didn't make some sort of raid there.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a raid or a dungeon. At least I think there's at least a dungeon. Yes, there is. Okay. Next up that I was going to mention is going to be the lair of the Earth Warder, Neltharion. So, obviously, Neltharion was Deathwing before he turned evil. And apparently we are going to be entering the lair of Neltharion, and we're going to be doing some searching about, apparently battling some curses. I don't know if it's going to be the Drogbar-related instance or not, but it should be interesting to see how they tie in Deathwing's kind of his homeland. It'll be cool to get a little backstory on that, and I believe it's intricate in one of the artifact weapons. So,
which is a huge topic that will be covered later on. There's the source of much excitement for us, and I'm sure anyone who cares.
Anyone who's wanted to touch one of those weapons, yes.
Forever. The Ashbringer, everything else that you could ever think of.
Did you want to touch on Suramar, Joel, or did you want me to?
Okay, Suramar, we have a new race of elves. They used and abused all kinds of magic that they had.
They sound pretty badass.
Very cool. Most corrupted races are kind of cool.
Yeah.
In their own twisted ways. But they seem to be like they're making themselves the bitches of the Black Legion because they're chasing that power, and the Legion is so powerful.
Yeah. They'll probably end up getting screwed over in the end. But it sounds like they have the last relic that we need. So that leads me to think that it's the max level zone. It's going to be where we're finishing our questing, our leveling.
And possibly the source of some major conflict in the expansion.
Yeah, definitely, because Suramar Palace is going to be the second tier raid. So that leads me to think that we're probably getting another 3-tier rating expansion. So we'll talk about that later, but that's just kind of what came to my mind. If this is the max level zone, and Suramar Palace is the second tier raid, which I've already mentioned, I don't know. I just think that's where how that's gonna pan out. I'm predicting a 3-tier expansion, and I have something to say about that later. So
I don't know. I think it's okay. It's okay. Depending on how fast people can plow through it.
Yeah, we'll see how they do the pace in this one, I guess. And then they kind of threw this at the end of the explanations of the zones here. They finally answered the question of where Illyria and Turalian are.
Who did?
Everyone has been asking. I think they mentioned since the first BlizzCon, everyone's been asking where the hell are Illyria and Turalian.
Also, Mantrik's wife.
Yeah. But, people were pretty excited to find out what Illyria and Turalian have been up to ever since they got stuck in Outland / Draenor when they were fighting off the
Abyss.
Yeah, they got sent somewhere, and there's been a lot of speculation, so people are looking forward to getting some answers and hopefully seeing them kick some ass because they're definitely some fan favorite characters. So.
Yeah. So Blizzard only announced 5 major zones for Legion so far. 2 pieces are taken off the general concept image shown at the announcement. It's a very different map, though, than one that's available on the website. Yeah,
I don't get this. So they do the presentation the same day, and they launch the website the same day. Yet the image they use in their presentation is completely different than the map they show on the website. So it's missing at least 2 islands on the map. One of them was huge, and the other one was a little tiny one. But people are looking for more answers. Is it going to be?
It could have been an error.
Is it going to be like in Draenor when they showed the original map and they had what used to be the Nether Storm? I think it was called the Fields of something. I can't quite remember the name, but people saw that zone and they're like, "Oh, this looks really promising." So then they scrapped that idea. So there goes the zone in Draenor, and then they're getting so close to the expansion announcement, and then they drop Tanan Jungle, and so they just keep getting people hyped and then letting them down. So I think even by showing an image that if maybe that'll be patch content, but why would they want to tease us like that? I don't know. It's just if you see it, you get excited about it, and then they take it away.
My personal feeling is that if you show a zone,
it should be in the game.
It should be in the game right away. Tanan Jungle, it's a cool zone now. I would have liked it a lot more when I first started playing.
Because we felt like we didn't have enough to do. Like we logged on every day for our garrison resources and
unless you're
running
raiding
that.
or PvPing and collecting stuff, or everybody does what they want to do. If they want to chase achievements or stuff like that, you can do that. But if you're just kind of like looking for something to do, like, oh, another zone would be really cool, because there's no way I had time to explore all the zones and do all that stuff when I was first leveling my character, but it would have been nice to have like another zone to go to.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think the map looks like the smallest continent they've announced to date in an expansion. I think it looks smaller than Draenor. I think it looks smaller than Pandaria. I definitely know Pandaria had more zones.
Pandaria had more zones, but there was also no flying for a long time.
There was no flying for a longer time in Draenor. They just got it today, I think.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we'll be...
Well, you need to have like a certain...
And you have to do stuff for it, yeah. Whatever.
I think that's one way of making zones feel bigger than they are.
Yeah.
Not to let people fly across them. Like,
no, and I totally think it's fine not to have it right away, because how else are you going to explore a zone? And if you just fly over everything, I think it's silly. I think it was great for BC because you had to work your way up to 70, and then they made the flying a requirement to get to other pieces to like continue your game.
And it was a gold sink.
Yeah.
So that kind of kept the economy in check in a way.
Yeah, I liked how you needed it to get to the next content. Like I think they set it up well, and I don't blame them for taking it away from some people. And if you really want to go fly on Azeroth now. Congratulations on being able to do that.
And Northern, you still had to get cold weather flying at level 60.
68, I think they did it. No.
Oh, it would have been...
Oh, no, it was
70,
78
or 77 or something.
I don't quite remember.
But still, like, for the first 3/4 of the expansion, you are forced to...
explore like you should.
Yeah.
Not just breeze through zones, because that's how you find the cool stuff. And that's how
also makes these strong monsters a serious threat.
Yeah.
Like, I know in Draenor, if I kept running past certain monsters, I would die.
Yeah.
Which I thought was good, because it made you have to, like...
It's not autopilot mode where you just...
Right. In Pandaria, you kind of felt like you were invincible once you reached a certain gear level. Like, yeah, I can run past these guys, but at the time, I get to a certain point, I'll run away, and I won't take very much damage.
Mm-hmm.
And I can keep doing it the whole way until I get to my destination. Or I can fly over everyone.
Yeah. So, let's get into the topic that I think most people are excited about, the artifact weapons. I was pretty astonished that they're making 36 different weapons, one for each spec. I think that's really cool.
I think that's cool, but also I think that saves them from having to make more weapon models at the same time.
Yeah, that's a topic. Are we going to be using I think we're just going to be strictly using these artifact weapons. I don't think there's going to be loot drops for weapons anymore.
Well, like you were saying, something happened where these weapons come into your possession. I don't know, if you had the Ashbringer, why would you trade it for the monkey staff of the Demon Slayer?
The monkey.
Like, you have these artifact weapons, and they are legendary. They're infamous. They are, them. You've seen them. You've wanted them the whole time that you've played.
Yeah. So I do want to make mention of one of the things that if it is just the artifact weapon, that we might, and there's some issues we might run into if that's the only weapon you're going to be using for the whole expansion. But let's just go ahead and explain what they are to people who don't know. So after the Broken Shore, players are going to be set out on various adventures in search of these powerful weapons. So we're talking like Thrall's Doomhammer. We're talking about Frost Death Knights getting some sort of these 2 one-handed swords made from Frostmourne. The Shards of Frostmourne.
Yep. A big upset, a surprise for most people. Survival Hunters are getting a staff instead of a bow, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah,
I think it might be a polearm, but yeah, it's still a melee weapon. I think they're making Survival a melee spec for the first time. People have been asking for it for so long.
So the running joke since the original game, when you would see some hunters running around with icy and fiery enchants on their one-handed weapons.
Yeah.
Raptor striking and wing clipping their way to success.
Can you imagine leveling only doing melee back then with Mongoose Bite and Raptor Strike, wing clip, and your traps?
If you stack dodge, you'd get a lot of Mongoose Bites, and it would go a lot quicker.
I think it'd be really cool to see how they make them kind of like a viable DPS spec. Maybe make more use of the traps. And
I'm kind of curious if all the shots are going to get their corresponding melee attacks. So like steady shot, would it be like steady strike or serpent strike instead of serpent shot, or what's happening there?
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see. So as you level up, as you do dungeons, as you PvP, as you quest, you're going to earn artifact power as you have your weapon, and it's going to allow you to customize your weapon, kind of like a talent tree system where it will empower the weapon and it will empower you. And then that kind of got me thinking kind of like a talent-like system with cookie-cutter concerns, meaning that there's most likely going to be the best options for people to pick, and people are going to pick those. People are going to Google it. They're going to be like, Ashbringer talents, what are the best? And
Max
people will,
DPS, Ashbringer. Yeah, you make a good point. But I feel like it's a little different than the talent trees right now. You're saying that these weapons are going to have their own talent trees. Classes right now have their own talent trees. I feel like the way they have the talent set up for classes, there is no optimal.
Definitely not anymore.
There are optimal specs for certain classes.
Yeah, but you can definitely make it more. Yeah, you can now with that new talent system.
There's a lot more options. It's not like, okay, the old system increase damage of your shots by 1%, 2%, 3%. Like, that's not there anymore. Now you get to pick, do I want, this shot that does a dot, this shot that does like big damage right away, or something in between the two. So you have a lot more options, and hopefully that's the system they take for these weapons. Because I think if they did that, it would be a lot better. Like, people don't want to be like, they have all these different versions of like these weapons, like Corrupted Ashbringer, and then there's one that looks like
it's like a demonomic one.
Yeah,
and there's one that's like lightning.
Yeah, it's based on that legendary weapon. I can't think of it.
Oh, I never even thought about that. Thunder Fury?
Yeah, it's kind of based on Thunder Fury.
Kind of, yeah. I never thought about it like that.
But, like, if you really want the one that's demonic, you don't want to have to spec into the one that's corrupted.
I don't think the talents have anything to do with customization of the visual appearance.
I would hope not.
No, they don't.
That'd be good.
That's earned a different way.
Well, either way,
like I think it's achievement based. So
that's
I don't think you have to spec anything into it.
Yeah. Well, good, because I know a lot of people would hate being forced to, I heal, so I can't have this version of the weapon.
Right. I don't think they're limiting anyone like that, which is really good, because on top of the visual customization, you get the choice of, I believe, four different types, and then you'll get color variants inside of that. So you can get a flaming one. No, it might not necessarily be a flaming red Ashbringer, but you can get like a green one
or a purple one.
Yeah, that's what I think. When people saw the different variants of the weapons, they were just, I was blown away.
People like
the audience was freaking out.
People like that. People like the customization. That's why like transmog sets were so cool and so big.
So touching on the artifact weapons, they did show a few different ones for us. They showed the Ashbringer, which is very identifiable. They showed us Doomhammer, even more identifiable. One of them I thought was really cool was Philo Malorn, which is Kael'thas's one-handed like
scepter.
Yeah, I think it's more of like a sword. So it's like, what did they call them?
Spell swords.
Spell swords, basically. Yeah, they had those like in BC. You'd come across one of those.
I thought they were always really cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool seeing a mage do that, because that's how you sometimes see a mage in a fantasy game. They would be carrying a weapon that would be used in melee, but they might not use it.
Kind of think Gandalf. It's kind of a bad example.
I was going to say Gandalf.
His staff is so big, but he also wields a one-handed sword.
Yeah, and he's just slicing and dicing, and I think it's cool to see a carrier like that, and it's not. This weapon is not something they pulled out of their ass, because if you've read Arthas's book, the story about him, it's actual lore. They talk about his weapon, so they made it. They made it sound like the fire mages. This is going to be their weapon. They're going to have to go out and find Kael'thas's fire sword, and that'll be interesting to find see where that's at, because he only died twice.
Yeah, just 2 times.
He only died twice.
By World of Warcraft standards,
he's ready to come back. Is what you're saying?
Yeah,
he hasn't given up.
We're gonna see Illidan again, so he'll get his second turn. I am hoping that the quest will be as epic as the one to get Shadowmourne was. I know that was like a pretty involved quest for Death Knights.
Mm-hmm.
It took you all over the place. It had you do some pretty intense stuff. You had to be able to use your class abilities. Like, you had to get through some stuff that was kind of tough to solo. And I hope that they have you do something like that. I know it would be cool for everyone to have an artifact weapon, but maybe everyone shouldn't have it if they're not good enough to get it.
That'll be the debate for sure, but it sounds like everybody's getting it. And that's the big thing people are worried about. Oh, we're all going to be running around with Ashbringers, which is probably going to be the case, but it looks like they're offering a lot of customization. They're offering even exclusive variants for some of their weapons, which I think they're dedicating at least one of the 4 ones that we saw to PvP only, so that could be interesting. I think they said that's going to be the more grim, kind of rugged style, like
dark, bloody,
essentially
barbed looking thing.
Yeah,
stuff that looks like it can do a lot of damage to flesh.
Yeah, some of my favorite looking weapons were the Frost Knight's dual wielding swords. I think they both have their own unique names. They're both forged out of the shards of Frostmourne. I think they look insane. And that one will be really cool. I kind of want to roll a Death Knight just for that.
I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about leveling a Death Knight. I was leveling a monk lately, and it just loses its fun after a while.
We were talking about resubbing tonight. See, this is what happens, folks, when we talk about World of Warcraft. We end up playing it very shortly after.
And again, it's such a big part of your life, when you play it, and the ages that you're developing as a human being.
Yeah, that's definitely why it's so important to us. Is because those are we were developing, we were kids, this is what we did.
We're 11, we're 12, we're playing it when we're 16, 17, 18, 19
in college. Yeah.
It's all these developmental years, no matter what's going on, you're still playing well with your friends.
Yeah.
At some point in the year, I don't think there's ever been a full calendar year when we did not play World of Warcraft.
Yeah, there definitely hasn't been. And usually we resub twice a year, I would say, at least.
Once in the summer for sure.
And usually once in the winter, because so we get so fed up with the cold that we're okay, I'd love to stay inside and play World of Warcraft. And then in the summer, we get sick of the heat, so we're let's stay inside and play World of Warcraft.
At night.
So we usually can't handle the elements, but we're always coming back.
Indoor kids.
The last thing I wanted to touch on about the artifact weapons was, if you guys saw the developer release, Ian Hazzikostas is talking about the weapons, and then he shows I think it was 2 or 3 different lightsabers, and he's talking about the fangs of the first lightsaber, and it's all 3 identical pictures of this lightsaber that he's saying, so you see here in the first one, this is what your fangs of the lightsaber look like right when you get them, and then as you're leveling up, they get a little more powerful, and this is what they look like next, and they were all the same images. So he goes on, and then I could even hear people in the audience yelling, "Look at the screen! It's not what you're describing. You don't even know what you're talking about." And then Ian goes, "Oh, sorry." And then he flips to the next page, and he's got these just sick variants of lightsabers, and everybody in the crowd was like, "Yeah!" People were losing it. They're like, "Yeah, we got we got the customization of the skin colors for the different like bears and.
But finally, the weapons that the druids will be wielding will actually have some sort of appearance difference.
Yeah, that's what's great.
For a long time, you'd get these really cool, like Earth Warden, I think, was that really cool mace that druids would get in BC.
From the Cenarian Expedition,
right?
Yeah. They'd get awesome weapons for melee.
But it wouldn't matter. You'd be a bear, you'd be a cat, you'd have claws.
Yeah, so the only time you get to show off your cool gear is when you're sitting, waiting for people to queue up for the dungeon or as you're waiting for the raid to get started. So yeah, that'll be really cool for druids to get to show off their weapon, and people will see you in form and be like, they'll know that this guy has seen some shit because he'll have the really cool variants and he'll have the really cool different forms. So they're gonna have that for both feral and guardian druids, which I think is really cool. And I don't know about boomkins.
For those of you who've seen Silicon Valley, you walk up to a druid who looks like this, and you'll just think, this guy fucks. He knows.
Yeah, so all in all, I think artifact weapons are a really cool concept, and I think I'm not going to mind seeing other people running around with the same weapon as me because I plan to do a little extra, and I plan to get the pretty unique variants if that's possible for me. So.
Oh, I would love to just do whatever I can to make the customization possibilities as large as possible.
Yeah, and I think they mentioned that they're going to allow them to be transmoggable too, because if you really don't want to have that, like you'll get sick of it eventually at some point.
You're pretty much forced into having one of these weapons. But yeah, like you're saying, you have the ability to transmog it. If you like some of the spell swords from BC, or if you like some of the kind of Viking-looking weapons from Wrath, which were really cool. You can have those instead of having the Ashbringer. You've got options. All right, so moving on, there's going to be class order halls. That is kind of something which we haven't dealt with before. My understanding is that your character will be seen to the NPCs of Azeroth as the leader of your class. You're taking the helm. Maybe that's why you're wielding these weapons. It's a showing that you have achieved something great. Because, I mean, if you think about it, up to this point, you've killed Anexia, you've killed Kel'Thuzad twice, you've killed...
if you're 3% of the population that saw him in vanilla. Or even walked into Noxeramas. I think it was 3% of the population of the game walked into Noxeramas in vanilla. But that's a tangent. I'm getting off topic.
The NPCs still assume, like...
Right, you've done some shit in the world of Azeroth.
You have saved Azeroth countless times. Like, you need a vacation or a really cool weapon. So we're giving you the really cool weapon.
No vacations yet.
No, that's World of Warcraft 2. Hitting the beach. Dance party in Stranglethorn Vale.
In the secret spot, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Right by the stuff.
I think the objective with the class order halls is kind of taking the garrison model, tweaking it a bit. You're not going to be building your own base or anything like that. I don't think they're going to have a lot of building customization, not a lot of aesthetic customization in these class order halls, because I think they're going to be given to us how they are.
That's fine. Garrisons kind of separated you from other players. You could sit in your garrison, you could be in trade chat all day, you could be in queue for whatever, but you'd never have to leave your own little spot. You'd never see another character unless you invited them in.
Yeah. Which you only did to do your invasion quests. And
yeah, this is something I'll get to later, is kind of like the lack of a community feel of World of Warcraft, but it sounds like the class halls will kind of bring that back to some extent. Like, you know, you'll have a bunch of paladins hanging around the paladin hall.
That'll be cool.
Rogues being all sneaky in their little cave, and you'll have warlocks being all weird in theirs. You know.
Yeah, they're going to be... the warlocks were mentioned to be off in a demonomic world that they have to portal to. I mean, that's going to be sweet. Like, they're going to be amongst Felfire, and they're going to be in this just ruined little planet, it sounds like, and that sounds like it'll be really cool for the warlocks.
For people who RP, this is going to be amazing. Like, Garrisons probably didn't do that much for them. But if you get to, RP with all these other warlocks or all these other druids, just like be like, oh my god, nature, we're in such a cool place.
Yeah, where are the druids gonna be? That's gonna be cool.
I'd imagine they'd be in Moonglade somewhere.
They're probably gonna be in the Broken Isles somewhere in some of this.
The refuge for the druids
in Val'Sharah or something like that. That's so cool. That's what's gonna be really cool. Is they're gonna have unique places that. I think that's going to be really cool. The shaman are going to be in Maelstrom in this cave above the churning magma, above the lightning, above the water.
Above the elements.
Yeah, they're going to be right at the epicenter of where all the elements combine. I think there's been mention the rogue one. I know is really being debated. Developers are just getting pounded on the forums about it because a ton of people want Ravenhold Manor.
That would make sense.
It would, and I think the devs are really heart set on Dollar Sewers integration, which is kind of cool. But some of the people who've been playing the game for so long are finally make Ravenhold Manor something, make it a reason relevant. To go.
Yeah, I'd like that, or I'd like some tavern somewhere, just some obscure tavern in WoW.
Yeah, I think having a secret entrance or something somewhere, where they go into their little private area, but or having a whole manor where they're these scoundrels. Rogues are these dirty people that they aren't these super lavish heroes that like to relax and be glorified. They're these just scoundrels that I think if they had their own little private manor or mansion to just hang out in would be a very rogue-esque thing. I think that would be pretty cool.
They'd probably be playing dice in the basement.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if the Dollar Sewers make that much sense because here they are in this grimy, nasty area of a mage city. What the hell are they doing there? This has got me really excited thinking about where everyone else is going to be. Where the hell are the mages going to be? Somewhere really cool, I'm sure. Everybody's going to be somewhere really cool.
Paladins is kind of an interesting one. Are they going to be in a cathedral?
They are. They are in this chamber below Light's Hope Chapel, from my knowledge. I think that was announced. That one and the Warlock one and the Shaman one, I think, are the only 3 confirmed ones.
I think mages would have to be in Dalaran somewhere.
Unless there's another major area. We're kind of passing over. But yeah, Dalaran is the mage main area.
Unless they end up in the Eye of Eternity or some place similar to that where
maybe they could just portal somewhere really cool and they're just chilling.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's really exciting, and this is all very early information. So whatever we're providing you guys right now is still very up for debate.
When we're wrong, looking forward to the comments.
No,
you guys are so dumb. Can't believe you thought that.
I can't believe you guys thought that. But one of the major things about the class order halls is the champion system, which is going to be an evolution of the follower system. The criticism behind the follower system was, here's a bunch of people that aren't super relevant. We found them on Draenor, but they're just chilling at our place now. They go off and do these missions for us that we just click a button for, and then they bring us loot back. It's okay, that's kind of cool, but also kind of pointless.
You didn't know any of them, or most of them, I should say.
Right. Some of them were cool. Some of them had some cool story.
Leroy was someone you could find.
Yeah.
But one of the easier guys to find was Crowman.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, and I think what's going to be great about this champion system is that there's going to be a much smaller number than the followers. I think probably about a handful of champions that will be directly answering to you. And it sounds like there's going to be a lot more customization with them, and then the integration sounds like you are going to be out with them, working together, doing things together. They'll be helping you out. You'll be helping them out. It doesn't sound so much okay, you go do this for me and bring me back whatever you find. They're going to be out in the world helping you, or you're going to be out working with them. And they're just going to have more prevalence than the followers that you just equipped and you made sure you had a really strong one of each trait, and so you can complete these missions and get this and just basically optimize your followers to getting the best loot you can. I don't know if they're going to have loot perks for us or what the drive is going to be for us to get these champions stronger, but
I do like it. At the same time, I don't. Again, I feel like if there's quests that are tough to do by yourself, instead of finding a real person to do it with, you just have these champions now.
I'm hoping that's not the case either. I'm hoping that it's not you're struggling, just call your champion. No, I don't think it should be that easy. I don't think it should be set up that way, and I hope that it's not. And that's a good point.
Right.
So, yeah, that's going to be the new class order system. Should be really cool. Hopefully they're giving us some more information soon. And with that, we're going to wrap up the first part of our Legion discussion. If you're interested in hearing more about the exciting features of this expansion, or our thoughts on how they're going to affect the game, go ahead and listen to part 2 of the Legion announcement discussion, which should be released just a few days after this one. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.